In this video, you're gonna see me make every Sprunky using only candy, starting with Wenda. Now for this, we're gonna need a lot of vanilla candy. Now Wenda's fairly easy, but as you watch through the video, the Sprunkies are gonna go from phase 1 to phase 2, and we even have some phase 3 Sprunkies. First, I shaped the head and body, but this is still missing all the details. But after adding ears and whiskers, the final step is gonna be the hardest.
Nick, what's the final part?
The eyes. Next, I add the mouth.
I thought you said we were doing the eyes.
That's the final part. Now you might think these look weird, but that's because they're so difficult to shape the tiny little black lines of candy. This is just our first Sprunky of the video, and our next one is Oren. I'm on a mission to make the Sprunkies out of candy, and you wanted Oren next. First, I unwrapped orange candy and then started shaping it into his body. But after adding a big circle for the head, this was still missing all the details. Now I need to lighten this candy, so my plan was to borrow some white from Wenda. Next, I put 2 balls on a stick to make his antenna. And after carefully making the headphones, the final part was gonna be the hardest. Because if you don't know, faces are the hardest thing to make out of candy, and all these tiny little lines have to be perfect. Now, what Sprunky is next?
Help me!
Because the Sprunky is attacking Nate, my plan is to make the Red Sprunky to defend him. First, the easy part is unwrapping red candy and shaping it into the body, and you'll see why. Now, the reason I chose to make the Red Sprunky is because he has spikes on his head and looks like he can do a lot of damage. But this is still missing the face, and I have to hurry because Nate is still being attacked. Now, the final step is gonna be the hardest, so as I'm making the eyes, you're gonna have to trust the process because it's gonna come together like magic when it's done. But then he also started attacking Nate. I'm on a mission to make every Sprunky out of candy, and you wanted Simon next. I started by unwrapping yellow candy and shaping it into his body. But after adding the head, there was a problem. I don't have any more yellow candy for the details, so my brilliant plan was to borrow Pikachu's ear. Now you're about to see why I was nervous to make this. Because candy is sticky, and all these little details require perfect precision. But after adding the final detail, let me know what Sprunky you want me to make next. My prime! Because the Red Sprunky stole my prime, my plan is to make Derpal to get it back. But the problem is they don't make purple candy, so my plan is to sacrifice some of my old projects. After carefully separating the colors that didn't belong, I'm left with this blue candy I have to turn purple using my secret ingredient, Red 40. Next, I form the candy into the outline of Derpal's body. Now, it might not look like it yet, but you're gonna see all these details come together. Now, I'm hoping these sharp horns will help me get my prime back, but the final step is gonna be the hardest. Now, you might think these eyes look weird, but they're gonna come together like magic when I'm done. Just then, Derpal ended up drinking the prime too.
This food is raw!
Because Nate's steak isn't cooked, my plan is to make Mr. Sun to warm it up. I started by unwrapping yellow candy, but I have to focus on making a perfect circle, and you'll see why. Because Mr. Sun is missing his details, and without them, he won't be able to heat up. Now, as I was shaping the orange candy into little triangles, I had to add just the right amount, but Nate was getting hungry, and I still had to make the final and most important detail. Now, what Sprunky do you want me to make next? What are you doing with my Lunchley? Ow! Because the Red Sprunky stole my Lunchley, my plan is to make Brud to get it back. But the first challenge is trying to stop my brother from eating my candy. Now, as I was shaping the chocolate into his body, you might have noticed this is missing the most important detail. Now, can anyone tell me why Brud has a bucket on his head? Just then, I was getting hungry, but I still had to add the final detail. But then, Brud stole the Lunchley again. Whoa! Because the Red Sprunky pranked Nate, my plan is to make Garnold to get revenge. First, I unwrapped yellow candy, but the problem is I have to try to turn this chocolate candy black with food coloring, and you'll see why. Now, as I was shaping the candy into the body, I was hoping Garnold would be strong enough to fight back, but he was still missing the final detail, so I had to very carefully use our black candy to try to make his visor and mouth. Just then, the Red Sprunky attacked and shattered him. Because my candy Wenda broke, you wanted me to make Pinky to help fix her. First, I unwrapped red candy, but the problem is I need to turn it pink. So after combining it with vanilla candy, I was starting to see Pinky's body take shape. But this is still missing the most important details, and I have to hurry to get Wenda into one piece. Next, I added the ears, and you're about to see what I'm gonna do with these little hearts. But for the final step, you're gonna have to trust the process because it's gonna come together like magic when I'm done. Now, let me know what Sprunky you want me to make next.
This computer is so slow!
Because Nate is having computer problems, my plan is to make him Mr. Fun Computer. First, I unwrap chocolate candy, but the problem is I have to add blue food coloring to make it black, and you'll see why. Now, while I was shaping it into a square, I had to add vanilla candy to make the rest of it gray. And after adding it around the edge, you might think this is starting to take shape, but you're about to see me transform these colors into something. But after adding the hat, this is still missing the final detail, and I have to hurry before Nate crashes out. Now, let me know what Sprunky you want me to make next.
Get away from me!
Because the Red Sprunky is attacking Nate, my plan is to make Oax to defend him. First, I unwrapped green candy, but the problem is I have to add yellow to make it lime green. And as I was shaping his head and body, the reason I chose Oax is because he has these big sharp spikes on his head, which look like they can hopefully do a lot of damage. But this is still missing the final details, and I have to hurry because it's not looking good for Nate. Now, you might think these eyes look weird, but you're gonna see it all come together when I'm done. Now, what Sprunky is next?
I hate winter!
Because Nate has seasonal depression, my plan is to make the blue Skye Sprunky to cheer him up. First, I unwrapped vanilla candy, but the problem is I have to turn it blue with food coloring, and you'll see why. Now, as I was shaping the body, I was hoping the light blue color would remind him of a sunny day. So I have to add the ears and hair, but this is still missing the final detail, so I have to hurry to try to save Nate. Now, you might think these eyes look weird, but it's all gonna come together like magic when I'm done. But then I accidentally dropped and broke Skye.
Sorry, Sprunky, but I have to Tanghulu you.
Because you wanted me to Tanghulu Pinky, step 1 is boiling down the sugar and water. But the problem is she's too big to put on a stick, so you're about to see my backup plan. But now her head won't fit in the pot to dip. But I can Tanghulu anything, so now it's on to my final plan. But as I'm pouring over the melted sugar, I have to quickly add the ice water or else Pinky will disintegrate. Now, what Sprunky is next?
You drank all my prime. Now I have to Tanghulu you.
Step 1 to Tanghuluing Oren is boiling down the sugar and water. Next, I have to put him on a stick, and you'll see why. But the problem is, when I went to dip him in the Tanghulu, he's too big to fit in the pot, so it's on to plan B. Now, I hope this teaches the Sprunkies not to steal, but as I'm pouring the melted sugar over him, I have to hurry and add ice water before he melts away. Because my candy Skye Sprunky broke, you wanted me to put him back together. But the problem is these pieces aren't sticking together, so my plan is to use toothpicks, and you'll see why. Now, I hope this doesn't hurt Skye too much, but after getting his body into one piece, I had to very carefully add his little ears back into his head. Just then, it wasn't looking good for Skye, but I still had to add the final detail. Now, what Sprunky do you want me to make next?
What happened to your hat?
Because someone stole Mr. Fun Computer's hat, my plan is to find out who did. Just then, I found a trail of candy leading me outside. Now, I was curious who was at the end of it when I found the Sprunky Derpal. Now, he was refusing to answer any of my questions, but just then, I heard a noise coming from inside the studio. I was shocked to see Oax took the hat because he had a bad hair day.
I can't see!
Because the sun is in Nate's eyes, my plan is to make MrTree to give him some shade. First, I unwrapped chocolate and lime candy, but I saved some chocolate for later, and you'll see why. Now, this just looks like a log, but after adding the leaves, this is still missing the final detail. So using our candy from before, I have to add blue food coloring to make it black. Now, I have to hurry and get this tree to Nate before he goes blind. Because my candy Ratty broke, you wanted me to put him back together. But the problem was his pieces weren't sticking, so there was only one option left. First, I unwrapped candy, but I had to turn the chocolate black with food coloring, and you'll see why later. Next, I carefully shaped the vanilla candy to make the outline of his skull. Just then, it wasn't looking good for the Red Sprunky, but I still had to add the black candy for the final detail. Now, what Sprunky is next?
Make Tanner next!
Because you want me to make Tanner, step 1 is unwrapping vanilla candy. But the problem is I have to add some chocolate candy to make it the right color, and you'll see why. Now, as I was forming his body, I had to carefully shape these little bits of candy to make what looks like his hair. Now, this was still missing something, so I shaped the chocolate candy to make his hat. But I still have to add the final detail, and although you might think these eyes look weird, they're gonna come together like magic when I'm done. Now, what Sprunky do you want next?
Oh no, MrTree!
Because Minecraft Steve chopped down MrTree, my plan is to put him back together, but I only have red candy, and that's actually a good thing. Now, as I was shaping it into his leaves, this was still missing the final detail. But after adding the mouth, I have to use this broken piece from Ratty, and you'll see why. Now, all I have to do is quickly transform the candy into his eye. Now, what Sprunky do you want next?
Mr. Sun, watch out!
Because Mr. Sun caught on fire, once I put him out, my plan is to restore him. First, my idea was to use a spoon to try to scrape off his burn, but it was not going to plan because he broke my spoon. Now, he's still missing something, so I combined his facial features, and you'll see why later. So for the final detail, I shaped vanilla candy, and after topping it off with our candy from before, let me know what Sprunky you want next.
I finally got you!
Because Nate is attacking the Red Sprunky, my plan is to make Gray to try to rescue him. First, I unwrapped vanilla candy, but the problem was I had to combine it with black, and you'll see why. Now that it's Gray, I started forming it into the shape of his body. Now, you'd be correct if you thought this was missing the details, so next I have to add the ears and face. But after adding the mouth and eyebrows, I have to hurry to add the final detail. Now, you might think these eyes look weird, but they're gonna come together like magic when I'm done. Now, what Sprunky is next?
You ate my Lunchley!
Because Nate punched Simon, you wanted me to put him back together. First, I unwrapped chocolate and lemon candy, but the problem was I had to add blue food coloring to turn it black. Next, I used the lemon candy to try to get his face back into one piece. But he's still far from fixed, and because there's a massive gap missing, I have to use the black candy. Now, this was still missing the final detail, so my plan was to add vanilla candy, and you'll see why. Now, what Sprunky is next?
My computer has a virus!
Because Nate's computer is broken, my plan is to make Funbot to fix it. But the problem is I need to turn this vanilla candy gray, and you'll see why. Next, I have to stack up gray and yellow candy to start forming his body. Now, I'm hoping because this Sprunky is a robot, he'll know how to fix the computer, but I still need to add his antennas, and I have an idea. But after borrowing Phase 2 Simon's, Funbot is still missing the final detail, and I have to hurry. But just as I was adding the blue candy for his eyes, he got the virus too.
My Sprunky!
Because the Red Sprunky broke my candy Garnold, my plan is to put him back together. Now, the problem is these pieces aren't sticking together, so I unwrapped red candy, and you'll see why. Now, I was worried if the red candy would be able to hold him all together in one piece.
Stop! Thief!
Because the green Sprunky stole my money, my plan is to make Jevin to get it back. But the problem is I need to turn this vanilla candy blue with food coloring. But now after shaping his body, I need dark purple candy for his sweatshirt, and I think Grimace can help. Once I collected the candy I needed, Jevin was still missing his final detail. Now I have to hurry, and you might think that these eyes look weird, but they're gonna come together like magic when I'm done. Just then, Jevin betrayed me and took the money.
My flower is on fire!
Because my flower is burning, my plan is to make the Sprunky Vignetta to save it. First, I unwrapped green candy, but I had to separate some of it and add brown, and you'll see why later. And after forming the body, I brought back our candy from before to make Vignetta's hair. Now, there's a specific detail I need to add to help me save my flower. But after adding the mini candy flowers, this is still missing the final detail. Now, you might think her eyes look weird, but they're gonna come together when I'm done just in time to save my flower.
Oh no!
Because the green Sprunky broke, my plan is to make Clucker to help put him back together. First, I unwrapped vanilla candy, but the problem was I had to add black to make it the right shade of gray. Now, after shaping the body, you might be thinking something is missing. And after adding his hat, I have to hurry to make the final detail. Now, you might think these eyes look weird, but you have to trust the process. But the problem was I tripped and broke him too. Because the green Sprunky broke, my plan is to put him back together into Phase 2. Now, to get him back into one piece, I'm unwrapping green candy to help me stick it together. Now, you might think this is going well, but the problem is I still need to connect his head to his body. But as I was unwrapping chocolate candy, I had to add food coloring to turn it black, and you'll see why. Now, I have to hurry and add the final detail to Oax before it's too late. Now, what Sprunky is next?